This video is brought to you by EMM Labs. Hey guys, Jay here. So during my trip to Expona, one of the best sounding rooms for me was this room right here with EMM Labs gear and Credo Loudspeakers. This room honestly sounded very dynamic, very rapturous, incredible extension on both ends from top to bottom, and really airy, spacious with great imagery and vivid holographic imagery that I really loved. And despite it being a show setting, I really loved how this room sounded. Now, for those of you that don't know EMM Labs, I was very happy to see them there because it's not an overstatement to say that they're the leaders in the digital audio market. They make their own clocks, they make their own DAC chips, they make their own power supplies. They literally make everything that goes into their streamers and DACs and so on, that anything has to do with digital, and also their amplifiers, which we'll talk about in a bit here. But mainly they are known as the leaders in the digital audio world. Even a lot of professional studios use EMM Labs as well, and when it comes to digital audio components, they are kind of seen as the best you can get for the money, bar none. And that's in large thanks to this gentleman right here, Ed Meitner, who is a legend in the digital audio world and other things as well, since he has invented so many things that I can't even fit all into this video. He designed professional analog mixing consoles. He worked with Sony and Philips directly hand in hand to make advancements in the digital audio world, just to list a few of his accomplishments, but really, it's just scratching the surface. Now, unfortunately, Ed Meitner himself could not be there for Expona. However, EMM Labs is a family-owned business, so his son Amadeus and his very knowledgeable team was there at Expona. So I got the chance to meet them and talk to them about their gear and how things are done at EMM Labs.
My name is Shahan Al-Rashid. I'm the Director of Sales for EMM Labs and Meitner Audio. EMM Labs basically started when Sony and Philips approached Ed Meitner to develop A to D and D to A converters for the professional audio industry, because they were starting a big push with regards to SACD and DSD recordings, right? In the late 90s, right, as you'll know, a lot of the recordings that Sony and Philips was trying to push to the public were SACDs and DSDs, right? Most of the studios in the world, even until today, still use our professional converters, the ADC8 and the DAC8. Over time, obviously, because of the MP3 wars and stuff like this between studios, we decided also to move our technology to the consumer electronics industry, and that's when we really started developing all our converters, preamplifiers, etc., even transports for the consumer industry. And that's basically a brief with regards to how EMM Lab started. I joined basically as a distributor of their professional products because we were building studios and recording places in Asia and of course also in Canada, right? And then gradually I moved on to being permanently the Director of Sales for EMM Labs. The first time I actually got introduced to Ed was because I was trying to go into the SACD recording, because Sony and Philips approached us as well because we were building studios in Asia. And I was trying to find converters, DSD converters, for our portfolio, right, for studios. I called Ed in the office at 7 o'clock in the evening, and I introduced myself. He said, "Oh, okay, well, if you're doing this, I'm gonna fly down." And he took the converters, his ADC8 and the DAC8 to it, because I told him, I said, "Hey, I'm doing a recording at CBC with Don Harder. Why don't you bring the converters down and we can do this recording together?" And those were the first time I heard converters that convinced me that I didn't need to play vinyl or analog and stuff like that. This was just game changing. And and from then on we developed a very close relationship, and that's how I joined the company.
Next, I wanted to ask Amadeus how much of it, to what extent, is their components made in-house?
To what extent? Okay, so everything starts with an idea of how we can make our systems and our products better. Generally, that means that we need to go into the deep nitty-gritties of our design work and our circuits, and that goes as far as designing our own switch mode power supply, That means designing our own FPGA architecture for the DSP and processing, our own input stages for USB, Ethernet, Toslink, everything, as well as our own analog output stage. So all of these things culminate in our products being something that we have full control over. And because of that, we're able to form our own destiny in terms of how our products perform. When you're able to take our own single-bit discrete DAC module, dual mono DACs, and then we know exactly what it's doing inside of it, not like a chip where it's this closed box and we can't change anything, then what we can do is we can match that perfectly with the analog output stage, with the clock stage. We even design our own clock in-house. So all of these things come together where we put the clock directly next to each of the DAC chips, and then the analog output stage is perfectly matched with that DAC and clock stage. What this does is it allows us to have some freedom of shaping the sound and forming the sound of what we want. A lot of Ed's work nowadays is in the analog space. Actually, all of his work is in the analog space, to be fair. We have another engineer in our facility named Mariusz Paliki, and he is responsible for our DSP, for our FPGA design, and for our general digital side of the product. Because there's analog and there's digital.
Right.
Now they're so closely intertwined that Mariusz and Ed have to be perfectly in sync. And because we do everything in-house, we have that ability for Ed to walk downstairs into Mariusz's office and say, this is how I want to change the processing so that I can get the most out of the sound. And then Ed works a lot on the analog output stage. That's really what he's about. And that's why the amplifiers and the DACs and the preamps, they all have Ed's commitment to his focus is fully in it. And because we do one thing, it always transfers into another thing. And what I mean by that is when he learns something new about an analog stage in one product, generally what happens is it can transfer to another product. And if we were just buying stuff off the shelf, we wouldn't be able to go in there and say, oh, I can change this in this one and change this in this one. And I want to get to our upgrade program eventually too, because that's a big part about what we do at EMM Labs. And I think it's one of the main reasons why customers seek us out, because the word of mouth is that once you become an EMM Labs customer, you're kind of part of the family, and we'll take care of you into the future. We even design our own switch mode power supply. We have an engineer in-house named Shenhong Yin that his sole focus is designing switch mode power supplies. He is fully invested in the R&D work that it takes to be able to develop a certified, safe, and performance level switch mode supply that we use in all of our products. We're currently on the latest iteration of that switch mode supply, which we just released in the DA2i and DV2i converters. It's now being pushed into all of our other products at the same time. And what that does now is we've actually reduced the AC ripple coming from the line to a 0.01%. This is industry-defying levels, and we firmly believe that it's the best performing switch mode supply in the world. We also are able to power each of our components, each of our systems with their own power source inside of our products. So that eliminates any interference, that eliminates any crosstalk, and it really allows us to power everything inside exactly the way that it needs to be. And it goes back to doing it all ourselves. We do things the hard way, not the easy way. And because we do that, we like to say that we have some of the best performance that we can possibly achieve.
Next, I decided to ask the forbidden question with digital audio, which is, it's ones and zeros anyways, so why does it matter?
Well, it is a ones and zeros, but it's how it integrates with the rest of the system that's really important. When you're dealing with digital audio, one of the main things that we're worried about is timing. Timing plagues digital audio. And so we pride ourselves in our clock design because we use our own proprietary asynchronous clock. And if you guys want to go deep into the archives, there are patents out of Ed talking about asynchronous clock and reducing jitter. And jitter is one of the main culprits in digital audio. So what we do is in our DAC, whenever we have an incoming signal, we reclock everything and then allow it to proceed. What that does is it differentiates what's coming in and what's proceeding, and that means that we're able to reduce the jitter to very, very low levels. And I think that timing issues and jitter issues is the main culprit of what I call digititis. It's this sound that, this is the reason why so many people prefer the vinyl analog sound to digital, is because they're getting these inaccuracies. And this inaccuracy in timing is a huge part. So to answer your question, I think that timing issues and our ability to address timing issues is one of the main reasons why we can say that our digital sounds so much better.
Next, I decided to ask him why they make their DAC chips in-house in the first place. Is the ones in the market from AKM or ESS, for example, not good enough?
No, they're not. Hard stop, they're not.
Okay.
But there's another reason why we do it, is because we want our freedom. We want to be able to advance with the times, as Shaheen said earlier. We want to be able to offer something that's not going to go obsolete in a couple of years. We also don't want to get into the issue of a DAC chip running out of supply. And I'll give you a good example of that. During COVID, we all know about the chip shortages that happened in our industry. We were unaffected by it because we chose to go out there and we chose to make our own discrete Delta Sigma DAC, dual mono, which upsamples everything to 16 times DSD at the clock before proceeding into each of the DAC chips, which is right next to the clock. The reason why Ed did this so long ago was because he just didn't want to deal with any of the chips that were out there. So he said, well, I'll just go design my own. And that's kind of the way that we've done everything at EMM Labs. Another really important part of the DAC chip that I want to talk about is how it marries with the analog output stage. In our newest iteration of products, we're using a new analog output stage, which is called a folded cascode design. This is used in the communication industry, in telecommunications, and data transfer. And what that means is that it's operating at a very, very high speed. We get about 100 kilohertz of open loop bandwidth inside of our DAC. Think about that. 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz is generally what we perceive in real life. And we're extending that bandwidth all the way to 100 kilohertz. And if you check out some of the reviews of the latest products and reviews to come, you're going to hear people say that the DAC sounds so alive and it has so much breadth to it. And that comes down to one word, and it's bandwidth. And that was our main thing that we tried to do with the new DACs, and I think it was very successful, is improve the bandwidth that we're getting out of the DAC. You're going to get greater low frequency response, you're going to get much better soundstage, both in the vertical and horizontal domains, and you're just going to get this lifelike sound that breathes into the room and that doesn't sound like it's artificial whatsoever. Another thing about our analog output stages is that we operate on a completely flat frequency response. There's none of this smiley face with a boost in the low end and a boost in the high end that is going to give you this sense of, wow, there's so much presence and dynamics, because we believe that the flat frequency response is the most natural way that we're supposed to hear music, hear our favorite music. And we think that it's the reason why people can sit in front of their systems for hours and hours and hours on end and not have any fatigue or have any avertment to the music that we're listening to. You can keep that preamp volume turned up and never have to leave your seat.
So on that topic, I decided to ask him how important is measurements to EMM Labs.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like to say that we operate on a mixture of subjective and objective performance. Ed always likes to say that he likes his products to reach a level of measurement hygiene before he's willing to continue on. Because of that, we do intense measurements. We measure noise figures, we do a lot of THD figures. We have a lot invested in our measurement routine at EMM Labs. And every single product that we make goes through a rigorous testing process, both in the objective and subjective realms, to make sure that it's ready to go out into the world. Because at the end of the day, unless a customer is coming back for an upgrade, I want to make sure that the equipment is performing to the highest level before it goes out there, because I don't want to see it again. I never want to see the equipment coming back, unless they're coming back for our upgrades, which we can talk about. Our upgrade program stems back 20 years, and it's something that we came up with in a way to make sure to our customers that once you invest in an EMM Labs and Meitner product, you're part of the family. We have products now, and in fact, we just released the V4 upgrade to our XDS1 CD SACD player DAC combo. That product came out 19 years ago. So we have customers out there who have owned our products for close to 20 years, and we're able to bring the performance of that product up to, as far as we can with each individual architecture, we can bring it up to the performance level that we're at today. What this does is it really offers our customers peace of mind that once you purchase a Meitner and EMM Lab product, we're going to take care of you into the future. All of our products are modular in their design, in the way that we separate the analog and the digital components. The power supply is our own. So we're able to take our newer technologies and put them into our older products to make sure that customers are getting the best still of their products. I think one of the best things that I hear from people, from our customers, is the fact that they have this product for a really long time. They love it. They just want it to sound a little bit better. They don't want to shift it off to somebody else. They want the performance to match what we're doing now. And I'm really happy to say that this product here, the DA2i, is now in its third upgrade. The preamp will soon have an upgrade to it. The DSEQ1 has a V2 upgrade to it. These have a V2 upgrade to it. Our MA3 just moved to the MA3i. And the MA3 is by far the most well-received product that we've ever made in the market, because it's a true value proposition in terms of a DAC, preamp, and streamer all in one. It really shows our commitment to our customers, and I love to hear from people that they're happy about the upgrade program, because it's not necessarily the best thing from a business side of things, because if you really wanted to go with the trend, you would just release a new product and then the old one would go obsolete. This is one of the reasons why you don't see our products up for sale on the used marketplace very much, because people are generally buying them and they're keeping them for a lifetime, and we're really happy about that. And when we get remarks from our customers that they've upgraded their product and it's breathed new life into their systems, and they're happy that they didn't have to go and change out a box in their system and sell something and get rid of this and get rid of that, it really proves to us that our upgrade program does what it's meant to do, which is keep people in the family. All right, so I want to talk about a special project and a very niche project that we've been working on since 2019. This is a DS Audio Grandmaster optical cartridge. This is a very different implementation of a cartridge than anything else in the world. They're the only company that makes what's called an optical cartridge. What I mean by that is that instead of magnets or coils on the end of the cantilever and using magnetics to produce the voltage, what happens is, as the needle runs along the record, and I could just do this just to show you. As the needle runs along the record, two-thirds of the way up the cantilever, there's two light shielding plates that look kind of like a W. Then in front of each of those is an LED, and behind it is a photodiode. And what happens is, as the needle moves, the cantilever is moving like this back and forth, and the photodiodes are reading the difference in shading that produces the voltage coming out of the cartridge. Now, as you can see, there's an LED on this cartridge, and I can turn it on and off. So I'm supplying power to the cartridge. This means that you need a very different phono stage than your traditional MM or MC phono stage. You need what's called an optical energizer. EMM Labs was the first company outside of DS Audio themselves to make our own flavor of an optical equalizer, and this is now the DSEQ1 V2 optical equalizer. You don't need as much gain with an optical cartridge, and you also need to supply power to the LEDs. You need about 30 dB of gain versus 60 in a normal system. And the other thing that we need to do is we need to balance the frequencies, because this cartridge only requires between 500 hertz and 2 kilohertz of the RIAA equalization. So because we don't need as much gain in the system, that means we don't get as much distortion. It means we don't have to deal with this massive amount of gain in the system, and it makes the whole operation of this system much quieter. And I can show you what I mean by that. If you want to go up to the speaker there, I can bring this up, so the tone arm is up, and I'm going to turn the preamp up. So that's the preamp max, and that's how much noise is coming out of the speaker. It's a very quiet cartridge, and system. And that means what you get is much better dynamics. You get a blacker background when you're listening to your records. And I think, if I was to put it in my own words, I think that you actually get the best of both worlds from our digital systems, which is this power, immediacy, and visceral reaction from your records. But you also get the musicality and the warmth that people associated with that vinyl playback. We have two different optical equalizers in our line. We have the Meitner and the EMM Labs, and we're really happy to be working with DS Audio directly on this development.
Next, having owned the Meitner MTR 101 monoblocks myself, one of Meitner's older designs, I had to ask about their monoblocks that was powering the system.
You told me it was 1 kilowatts?
1 kilowatt class AB.
Like truly 1 kilowatt?
Truly 1 kilowatt.
And there's a interesting thing in the back there.
Yeah, there is.
Like, what 30 amp?
There's a 30 amp power inlet on the back of this thing.
And
that's correct.
The first question I asked him immediately was, is that standard? Or is that like it's standard?
It is absolutely standard. And I want to say, first of all, that we actually ship our own high-end power cable with every single product that we make. Mm-hmm. We believe that having a certified quality power cable on our units is very important. And so we work directly with Kimber Cable, who we've had a relationship with for close to 3 decades now. And every single EMM Labs product comes with a high-end Kimber power cable with it. The amplifier has a 30 amp power inlet on the back of it because what you bring in is what you can put out. This amplifier theoretically is capable of putting out 64 amps of current through the back of it. We use a MOSFET approach, and there's 4 packages of MOSFETs per rail, and then each package has 2 MOSFETs in it that are capable of 4 amps. So that means total this thing is capable of putting out 64 amps of current. Now, we limit that current because obviously that would melt any speaker in the world if you did that. But what we want to prove is that we can implement a MOSFET amplifier that has all of the power characteristics and capabilities of driving any speaker in the world, but also with the musicality and the dynamics that we think is very important for an amplifier of this caliber. This amplifier is very, very special in the way that it's made. Like I said, we do all of our own R&D and development in-house, so there's nothing inside of this amplifier that's off the shelf. We have our own custom wound transformers in here, and we have what's called a hybrid power supply that we use. So we use a combination of linear and switch mode supplies in this amplifier. The linear supply powers the buffers or the power modules. This is where you're getting your gain of 1 power. Then we have a switch mode supply here that's powering the input stage to the amplifier. This is where all the gain comes from, which is 30 dB, and that's where our voltage amplification stage is. And the other thing the switch mode supply is powering, which is active at all times, is the monitoring stage of the amplifier. The amplifier, because you're dealing with this much power and this much current, and you're connecting it to speakers that could be worth well over $100,000, you want to make sure your investment is safe. So we developed a monitoring system inside of this amplifier that in real time looks at all of the parameters that is operating inside. Everything from the heat on each of the heat sinks, the input voltage from the wall, the voltage to each of the rails, how much output current, how much output power, and if in real time, if any of those metrics goes over our threshold of safety, or if there's any incongruencies with them, like if you have a sagging side versus an active side, then the amplifier is going to turn off immediately and protect itself and the speaker. Now, we don't expect this to ever happen because of the way the amplifier was made, but it's peace of mind for a customer when you're dealing with an amplifier of this power. The input stage in this amplifier is really, really special, and we're talking about how we do everything ourselves in-house. This means that we go through a lot of iterations of what we're doing before we release it to the market. This is the V2 version of this amplifier, so it's a part of our upgrade program. But since V1 to V2, we did about 16 iterations of the input stage to get to the place where we are now. Because as we constantly learn things on the DAC side, on the preamp side, and on the DS Audio Optical Equalizer side, we're able to apply those changes to the input stage, which is really where the magic of the amplifier's sound happens. and we're able to make it better and better and better. And so now we're at K4 in terms of our rev. So we start at A0. So this is a relentless pursuit of perfection on our side and on Ed's side. And I'm really happy to work directly with him and see all of this come to life in real time, because I can remember what the first amplifiers sound like, and I know that we've made significant advances to where we are now. So these are something that we're very proud of, even though we're known in the industry as the digital guys. This is truly a statement amplifier, and so far it's been received as such by our clients as well.
And you can get them in monoblocks or in stereo.
That's correct. So we make a monoblock version, which is a fully balanced design. And then in the same chassis and the same orientation with all of the same goodies inside of it, including the hybrid power supply, the monitoring stage, the power buffers remain the same. We actually can split it so that it's a single-ended design, and then you have a stereo amplifier. So we offer 2 different amplifier offerings at EMM Labs. Another interesting thing that I just thought of that I can bring up is the fact that this amplifier is what I would call speaker agnostic. What I mean by that is that it doesn't matter what the load is that you're connecting to this amplifier. We test them from 1 to 32 in our testing cycle. The amplifier's performance does not change under load, and that's very, very important, because we want to be able to drive the most difficult loads and the easiest loads with the exact same performance throughout the audio spectrum. We've done a lot of work into making that possible. And again, I want to go back to bandwidth. This amplifier has 100 kilohertz of open loop bandwidth. That means that you're going to be hearing things way beyond the audio spectrum, and it's going to reproduce them with ease and grace.
Next, I had to ask about the crazy line array speakers here from Credo, and thankfully, the designer was in the room. I just didn't know. So here's what he had to say about the speakers.
You're looking at the Cinema LTM, which is a from the ground up developed true line source. When I design speakers, I design them for their purpose, like where do they go, where do they live? Because I have a background in pro audio, and all you want is to control your dispersion pattern. And
do you want to have a large dispersion pattern or a narrow dispersion pattern?
Really depending on where you put it, on the room, what is the acoustics. We do bespoke home theaters, and then we design it from the ground up. In stereo, I want to say the horizontal needs to be as wide as possible and as coherent as possible. And then vertically, it really depends. I mean, most of the time the point source is fine, and we have several models that are point sources. But once you move up into a big listening space and a kilowatt of amplification, there is really no more point in having a point source speaker. What you want is control over your dispersion pattern so that you beam the sound. And we do that to get rid of the floor and the ceiling bounce of the mid and high frequencies. And therefore, the wavefront traveling to you doesn't collapse. And we do that by stacking drivers on top of each other, so they either combine or they cancel out when you move out of phase.
I also see these gigantic woofers on the side. Are those active or?
It is fully passive.
Okay.
Yeah, so you just need one channel of amplification. There are adjustment options because you really want to control where the speaker moves from the midfield into the far field, and that is different in every listening space. So therefore we adjust the levels of these banks and of the bands. In that case, we have 4 12-inch side-firing woofers. It is a mechanical cardioid subwoofer design. You do that a lot in pro audio because you want the bass like in the audience and not on stage. It works better if you have active system, but I mean nobody wants that in high-end audio. But you can still control your radiation pattern that is less omnidirectional just by arranging the drivers like these, and it's completely sealed cabinets. This room is quite interesting because I know EMM Labs for a very long time, and I always had this vision of a room and a system like that, and for many years I worked hard on it, and it came together the first time in 2019, this exact room. We always did it like year after year, and it always improved. The speaker hasn't changed, but like everybody else contributed a lot, and we came a long way, and it is the amp to go for, in my opinion. We have customers owning this exact systems, and it's mind-blowing. Many people these days like very high quality headphones, and it is way different listening experience to speakers. This is what gets you as close to a reference headphone set, even in a large room. I would say, yeah, that's why line array. It is coherent. It is like just there is no speaker. It's just a sound stage. It's kind of hard to describe because it's extremely unique. If you walk these 200 somewhat listening rooms, this stands out by quite a bit.
And you bet I knew exactly what he was talking about because I spent a good time in this room. I keep coming back to it too to listen to more and more, and it sounded simply fantastic. It was unbelievable the sound they achieved at a show setting out of all places. Now this video is already getting too long, so I'll stop here, but you can definitely look forward to more EMM Labs and Credo speakers on my channel in the near future. And hey, who knows, EMM Labs is actually in Canada, even though they're in Calgary and I'm in Toronto, Ontario. Yeah, we're still in the same country, so maybe I'll pay their factory a visit. You know what, if this video gets 3,000 likes, I'll visit EMM Labs and interview Ed Meitner himself in the factory tour. So if you want to see that happen, click the like button and I'll see you guys on my next video. Until next time.